So we decided to choose two processes that occur in the Hawaiian Islands, and they are very important processes for the formation of these islands. And one of those is the dike propagation. Sorry, I have some bars here that are covering my screen. Okay, I'm sorry. So we choose these two processes, dike propagation, which is the infield of magma into crust that is already cracked a little bit, and then the magma intrudes and create these sheets of magma. Usually they go vertical to the surface, and when it erodes, you can see them in the field. And these are structures that are very common in the northwest part of the Oahu Island. And also the other process that we decided to create an analog model from is the caldera collapse, which occurred in 2018. And it is it occurred in 2018, and there is a really good timeline with photographs that can tell us how the floor of the caldera just dropped down and created the caldera that we have now in the Kilauea volcano. So I'm going to start with the dike propagation experiment, and we use gelatin for this experiment. There were before in the past, and there are other researchers that widely use gelatin for their experiments in their labs, but I didn't see too much of this experiment being made for teaching purposes, for being merely outreach. So we decided to choose this and try to find our best recipe that can be replicated every single time and have every single time the same results, and that can be easily taken to schools or bring kids to watch it and try to make it very fun to watch and explain also the processes that we wanted. So we we created this tank with plexiglass, we used raw gelatin, we found a very big syringe, some tubes, food coloring, water, polarized sheets, and some tube connectors. And we started doing some trials that some of them were a fail. We thought in the beginning that we could make some different layers to simulate the different strata in the crust, but it didn't work because all the color just diffuses in the whole gelatin, and it didn't let us see through very well. And also with the coloring, we tried different food colors, and some of them were very liquid. So it didn't really painted the path of the fluid going to the surface, but we found that acrylic paint was the best choice for color because it really stained the gelatin, and it was very easy to see through all the process during the whole experiment. We also decided to add two polarized sheets because it creates these very beautiful rainbow colors due to the stresses of the gelatin push it towards to the surface. And it also tells us where are the forces being done inside the whole gelatin. And in the end, we had this, we decided to make just the gelatin clear, transparent. We use also a little bit of bleach to avoid some fungus. And yeah, we have also some lights to intensify the colors with the polarized sheets. And this is what we got in the end. So we also created a small crack in the bottom of the tank, so the liquid can go through towards, and we can see how the dike here propagates to the surface and creates a tiny eruption here. This video is very fast, So I did a fast timeline of this video, but it was very useful to explain the kids step by step how they can start pushing and intruding some magma in this gelatin volcano. So it was very useful and fun to watch. We saw from the kids and other also adults and other students from high schools and also undergrads that they really got entertained watching all of this. And also for recreating the actual process that is dike propagation, it also made sense how the magma propagates in thin sheets that it does that kind of like curves a little bit until it gets to the surface, and they go horizontal and creates a fissure also on the top. I'm gonna play it one more.
Hey, Andrea. So I have a question
Yeah.
sent here. Um, is They ask if these models are reusable, like once you inject your magma analog, you can reuse it again.
Yeah, this is not reusable, and that would be a cons of this experiment. However, what we used to do is to do 2 to 3 tanks of gelatin. Depends what we wanted to and how many people we wanted to show this experiment, and just make it once. That was the sad part of this experiment, but still very impactful. So no, we cannot redo the experiment again and again and again there. But what we did was just made 2, 3 tanks of gelatin. And also cleaning is not very easy. It requires some time to do the whole cleaning and have again all the setup for the next outreach event. But I think it is very worth it and rewarding though. And then we have the caldera collapse model. This was designed by Tom, and he created this this tank, which it uses also the plexiglass. There is here a ramp. All this system is connected through a system of plastic tubes that will be connected also to a syringe with also red liquid, would be our magma. We use this balloon as our magma chamber, these tiny valves that will be open and closed to create some flank eruptions. And we used sand to make a volcanic edifice. This is how we can see it from the top, the valves. We also made a here hole to create a sand drainage in case we wanted just to change the sand or make it lighter to move it to other place. And this can be replicated many times. This one was good for that. We can make so many times. And the idea of this was to recreate this eruption that occurred, the eruptions that usually occur at Kilauea volcano. For example, the one in 2018 that also were an eruption that sent magma through this magma plumbing system and created this eruption in the east part of the volcano. We also added a tiny, a thin layer of flour so we can see better the structures that it creates. Once we had our volcanic edifice, we started injecting some magma to the system and it creates an inflation. So we started usually in the outreach events, our explanation here, how when you start, there is more magma coming into the magma chamber, there will be an inflation in the surface, and we also make the comparisons with some cracks that have also formed in the Big Island in Kilauea volcano before eruptions. And here is a video. on how when we push some liquid through the tube system, you can see how it creates the cracks on the top. And then we made tiny eruptions on the flank of our scale volcano, and we started opening randomly the valves of the tube system, and it weakens the summit in our volcanic edifice, and start collapsing inside and creates this caldera. So this analog model was also very handy for people who came to us and wanted to watch this analog model, because it was also, we usually ask for a children or some other person to start pushing some magma in the system. There will be other volunteer opening the faucets, and we usually make questions at the same time that we are doing every single step in our scale volcano. And those were two models that we used a lot in the University of Hawaii, with other schools also from the island, so we can teach them a little bit more about the Hawaiian volcanism and some structures that they can see in the field. This was in the open house that our department in the University of Hawaii made every year. We also made this experiment with kids from very young ages, starting 3-4 years from this Montessori school, and it was also very fun for them to watch. I also work with Mikaela. This was a student who came to Hawaii for the summer, and she worked with me and this analog model with the gelatin. She helped a lot to make to document every single step of this experiment, and she also used a LiDAR camera. She filmed all the experiment from the top with a LiDAR camera, which will save the deformation on the top of the gelatin, and she also wanted to make some models of this deformation in the top of the gelatin. And this was the last one we just did this June in the Honolulu Zoo Camp. We brought the two analog models, the gelatin and also the caldera collapse model, and we usually also add a video of these two processes so the students can have the view of what happened in a video, in real video taken, and then also have the experiment. And these were some of the draws that the kids sent to us after our visits, and which was we were very happy, because through the draws and the notes that they send us, we can see that somehow all these experiments, they are very tiny kids or small kids, but somehow they have a picture in their minds that there is something they can study, and there are experiments that stay in their heads. So this is me with my gelatin tank here. And also I want to thank to my other research lab mates. They were also very happy to always come and help. And I particularly like this draw here, because it shows just kind of women being volcanologists, being researchers, and it is a change in general that they don't see probably anymore, the man with a white suit, but it is just as diverse and women. And additionally, what I did after that is created these pamphlets of instructions with every single step of how to do this experiment with the gelatin volcano. And also I have a video of how to replicate the simulation in case some teachers want to do it again. While we were doing the school visits and the outreach events, some teachers just came to us and asked how they can do that, or where can they get all of these. So we created some we created this material for them to have an idea, and also share our contacts for them to replicate what we did too. And same for the caldera collapse model. And yeah, that was a big part of my master's degree, and how we developed all these analog models to share with other people who does not study volcanoes, but they live in a volcano place. Yeah, thanks. If you have any questions, comments.
Awesome. That's a great job, Andrea. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if anyone has a question, wants to know more about the process of building these kind of models or adapting them to another volcano, like volcano you work in, yeah, please feel free to type it in the chat box, or just unmute yourself and yeah, and speak. Don't be shy. We have a question from Barbara.
Mhm.
And she's saying, she asked, how do you connect with teachers? Do you can you expand on that question, Barbara?
Oh, sure, Gustavo. First, thank you, Gustavo, for organizing this seminar series, and thank you, Andrea, for your great talk. I was just wondering, I mean, I imagine there are so many teachers who would be interested in these kind of demonstrations and learning about this, but how did you get in touch with them? How did you connect with them?
Oh, it was we started by, there were professors in the department who had their kids in schools, so they were invited by their kids to their school, and that's how we started. But also when there were open houses or activities organized by the department itself, the teachers will come, and then they will see the experiment, and then they will call us again to go and probably be a part of their science classes. And that's how we connected with teachers, and also through email. There were a school, I think we just found it online, so we just sent an email to the director of the school, and just presenting ourselves. We have these analog models. If there is any science teacher who thinks that can be also beneficial or just complementary for them to have this talk about Hawaiian volcanoes, then we will go there. So that was basically how. Mhm.
That sounds great. And I especially like how it sounds like you're developing a relationship with the teachers, how it's not just like a one event, but like you're following up after, and then maybe they will eventually think about UH when it comes to their students, you know, recommending in college years later when they get in touch with their elementary or middle school teachers. So thank you very much for your work. This is really important.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we have a question from Michael who asks if your caldera models are to scale.
uh, I'm not understanding very well that question. If, can I have a little bit more explanation on that? Are you?
Yeah, I was wondering if, you know, kind of the pressure that you were using within the balloon, and kind of the size of your sand grains was kind of replicated to scale for what you might see in the real world.
Oh, okay. No, we don't have a very precise scale of that. It was mostly made something very general, because it was for just basic teaching purposes. So no very scientific, but more just outreach and sharing. So they are not scale.
Okay, so Karen asks, how can we get access to the instructions? She'd love to think about doing this for Rogers Days, sort of an open house for the university.
Oh yeah, I'm just finishing the very tiny details on the instruction sheets. So I'm gonna publish them very soon. But yeah, I definitely am gonna send this through the volcano list and try to make it very public for other people to also have access to that. But I can also send here my email, or if someone is interested, just send me an email and then I will have it ready very soon so I can just start sharing all this material. But the video I can put again the QR code. I have also a video and it explains in detail too. I'm gonna type my email here.
Yeah, and I think that video it's on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we can find it and add a YouTube link so people can see it later.
Link right now.
Okay, I have a question.
Mhm.
Okay, hi Andrea, thank you for your nice presentation. And it is nice to see you and Gustavo, Luke, Bowman by here. And my question it is, you consider in your model the viscosity of magma or not?
No, I did the viscosity of the gelatin based on other research papers that people have used for geophysical experiments to do some. They used it a lot for kind of seismicity, something like that, where they kind of replicate the stresses of the crust. So they just share different concentrations of gelatin, and I tried. They say from 3% to 6% in different papers, but we found that making at 5%, it was a very good concentration, so the gelatin is resistant, and we can bring it from one place to the other without breaking it. Is enough hard to the liquid be injected in, and also enough hard to just move it around and doesn't make a mess. And don't make a mess with it. So our gelatin is made at 5% gelatin concentration, but it is not based on the viscosity of Kilauea or something like that. No.
Okay, thank you so much.
What about the viscosity of the liquid that you injected into the gelatin? Like, do you play with different, like, maybe compositions, things like that?
Yes. I mostly with colors. We just injected a different coloring. So there were these food colors that were to eat, and they would be very liquid. So with very liquid consistencies, we don't have a trace on the gelatin, and it will just flow all the way to the top and don't leave any mark in it. And then we try a little thicker paints, colors, and that was the whole different trials that we did. So we decided that the I forgot the name of the acrylic paint. That was the best for doing that. And then if we wanted to try with honey or something like that, it was just a mess. If our purpose it was outreach, it would be a mess and everything would be sweet and sticky in the places. So we decided just acrylic paint will leave the mark very well on the gelatin.
So Barbara is raising her hand.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I had a follow-up question, and this isn't so much to do with your actual model as in general, I found when I tried to do volcano outreach with students on Oahu and teachers, the hardest thing for me to communicate is that our islands formed from volcanoes. It seems like anytime I ask a probing question, it becomes obvious that they think the island was somehow there already. And the volcanoes are something and I'm not just talking about the rejuvenation stage volcanoes, but any volcanoes, they seem to think that happens like next. So even if I start with like a model of the ocean with no volcanoes, and I try to explain them starting from the bottom and eventually poking their heads up to form islands, it is I'm not effective at all in doing that. It's the one conceptual thing that always seems to arise. And I was wondering if you experienced that confusion and if you have any ideas how maybe to deal with it.
I haven't experienced that confusion, but I actually got comments from the kids after seeing the gelatin experiment. When they see the dike being painted there in the gelatin, the red color, they kind of make this like, oh, wow. And then it erodes. And then it's only the red patch that stays in nature. And these are the dikes that we see vertical. So they kind of wonder, and they are like, oh, when it erodes, that's why we have there, because it gets dry. All this red liquid that now is on the top of the gelatin, eventually it won't be always magma, but they will cool and they will create a cross surface. And that's how kind of they understand that cannot be anything, but if magma intrudes and then they cool, it creates a layer there that will be accumulated by another one and another one. And I've seen that with this experiment, that kids kind of just wonder, and they are like, oh, okay, so that's how it erodes and then it will stay there. And that's what we see in Waianae, for example, with the dikes that we have there.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, we have another question from Michael. Were you able to measure quantitatively the educational outcomes of your outreach events and activities?
No, we needed more time to start making surveys. We made the surveys, but we hopefully have another interested student in UH Manoa who want to apply the surveys. But the survey was made. Sadly, what we only have now is more qualitatively that it came from the kids' drawings.
How many schools do you visit?
I think we visited like 3 schools, plus around 4 schools came to on campus, and the SOES open house that we have that just came everyone from the island, and then the zoo camp that is also just different kids from the whole island just come to the zoo and have the summer camp.
Awesome. Do we have any other question?
I do.
All right.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you for the organizer. A very nice initiative, this one. I was not aware of the great community of Converse. So very nice to be part of it, at least in the audience. Andrea, I have a couple of questions. Number one, we live in a time where clearly not every person is really trusting in science. So therefore, you make these models, you make videos. How you want to make sure that what you deliver is really scientifically well planned? You really care about delivering teaching geoscience in a proper way, where you are a true ambassador of science. So how do you essentially make sure that you are not confused with some clown who wants to do science by reading a couple of lines on Facebook and then trying to make science? I think science is so easy to be delivered. So how do you defend science? How you are going to defend science for those who distrust science?
I think what we usually do for this is what we made is try to find a case scenario that actually occurred, and we can show them with videos or with some structures in the field. So from that, we started from that. Okay, we have this caldera collapse that occurred in 2018. You can see it through videos. And we don't want to also be very scientific with kids or high schoolers, but just show them this happened, and you can see this in this time lapse. And now this is how it occurred. And then when they start asking like more, but how do you know that this is inside? Then we just go with our resources. These are our references, these are our resources, that's how we do it. But I think it will be mostly that, trying to find the case scenario, something that other people that is not very into detail in science can see it, or can have a video of it, or can touch it in the field. And then kind of explain it and not be, and I think it helps a lot not being very scientific and very formal language, because I noticed that when you are more in that, kids become more like, I'm not understanding, it doesn't make sense, and they kind of lose the attention to it. So it was more make it simple and just try to have some comparisons with something they can see and something now they can touch in experiments.
Thanks for sharing how you defend science, your strategies, and how to be, of course, to be consistently scientific, also when you simplify the language in order to become more accessible. Now, if you want to turn your analog models into research determination or quantification of processes, what are the parameters you are going to modify to make the model much more scientifically deliverable, more scientifically credible, especially if you want to upscale the problem from the little experiment to the real scenario in the field?
In the case of the dike propagation experiment, when we also thought about that it cannot only be for outreach, but probably it could be a thesis undergrad or something that a master's can do research. So in that case, we need to be very precise in the size of the tank and have all the dimensions of the tank. Also probably make more trials with very specific concentrations of gelatin at different room temperatures, how they make the gelatin be set. It is room temperature or is in the freezer. And then also when we just made a tiny crack in the bottom of the gelatin so we can intrude the liquid. But if we kind of make this more scientific, we need to probably have different scenarios when we don't have only one crack, but we can have different cracks with different inclinations. And then is the liquid. We also tried with cold liquid. We can try with hot liquid. And probably in that case, we can also try different textures and different densities of liquid that is being intruded to. And also, it was a good idea with the LiDAR camera that we put on the top, because we can measure in detail how much is the deformation that occurs in the top of the gelatin while you are intruding the liquid. And also then we have a fissure created after you do all this experiment, you have a fissure on the top. And I think that could also be something to be researched, how the fissure creates, like in which angle, and if it affects the angle or something, if you inject different type of liquids. So I think it can be very, very scientific. And also the caldera collapse, same thing. We can try different magma chambers there, different shapes of magma chambers, different sand sizes. Yeah, so many things to do. And I think it's very possible to just become very scientific with this.
It looks like there is a potential for a fully developed PhD project just using analog modeling and exploring the different scenarios.
Yeah, it can easily be that.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any more questions? We are approaching the end of the webinar. But yeah, if there's maybe one more question, please. Yeah, please unmute yourself or type it on the chat box.
Thank you to all the people who stayed until the last.
My question is, what's happening at your next seminar? Is there like a series where you have another one scheduled?
Yeah, so I guess I'm gonna give you a little more information about the webinars. So these webinars are gonna happen bi-weekly on Tuesday. So the next one is not gonna be next Tuesday, you know, the following one. And actually, we're gonna have another student from the University of Hawaii, Mānoa, Mahina Kalani Robbins, and we're gonna give you more information about Mahina's session. We're gonna send out an announcement over the next few days. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. It's probably gonna be on the volcano listserv. Also, Michael put the link to join our CONVERSE mailing list. So you can also do that if you want. We're also working on getting our socials set up. So we're also gonna be posting announcements over there. So yeah, we have Mahina presenting in our next webinar, which is in 2 weeks. And if you know anyone who is an early career researcher who'd like to share their skills or their knowledge in this webinar, so I also put the link in the chat box. Let them know. We're happy to have more speakers. I'm also gonna show you this is probably easier. Just scan this QR code and you can access a Google form, the interest for our presenters for this webinar. So yeah, that's basically it. Please, if you have any question, if you have any suggestions, let me know. I'm also gonna put my email in the box. So yeah, and thank you everyone for joining today. See you in 2 weeks.